think it's safe to say that we all realised, did we not, that at that particular moment, in that particular time frame, we realised that in fact the former royal, now known as the Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, had very much beguiled the then much loved and lovable Prince Harry. If you remember that particular speech by Meghan, of course, she famously claimed, "Who's that standing there with your grandmother?" And that person turned out to be, of course, the former royal, now known as the Duke of York, Prince Andrew. But again, what was interesting about that whole sort of story, the debacle, whatever you want to call it, is, if you remember, Prince Harry wholeheartedly thought that this was true, that Meghan had no idea because she'd never Googled the family, she had no idea about his background. And then, of course, we realised that once again, Meghan, in her own imitable way, was simply stretching the truth. This, though, is now developing. As ever, let me explain. Morning, chums. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today, as ever, and welcome one and all brand new subscribers. Lovely to have your company. By the way, thank you so much for your positive comments on the recent episode of My Royal Appointment. It's interesting that, as I say, because when you go through certain stories on a deeper level, you do sort of think, oh, I didn't realise that. And as you can understand, this is an evolving story right now over here in the United Kingdom, because it is a royal scandal. No two ways about it, but we've had many, many throughout the centuries. So, I don't say that glibly, but what I mean is there's always another one coming up, isn't there, This sort of has reminiscences, of course, of one of the darkest and most depressing royal scandals, it has to be said, that of course, the former royal known as the Duke of York, simply because, well, we haven't had a wave either, have we? Nice to see you. Sorry, so engrossed, you see. Nice to have your company. Simply because, of course, the story goes that Prince Andrew was in fact the favourite of the late Queen. My theory about this, for what it's worth, is that I always felt that she probably had taken the, for that expression, forgive me, but the foot off the gas at that point. By the time Andrew came around, she'd already had Her Royal Highness the Royal Princess Anne, and of course her first child, now King Charles III. And it must have been difficult, young woman, suddenly, straight in the top job ever, and trying to find your feet. Plus, of course, being a mum, something has to give. I think most women out there who have had children, who know what it's like when it's young, you can't do everything. Imagine being in that position in that era. And I'm not making excuses, but you know what I mean. Difficult times, difficult period, obviously. Now, Andrew, I've met him on a number of occasions, very sort of petulant, definitely liked his own way, but in many respects had similar problems to Harry, in the fact that, he didn't really have a role. And I think his greatest role, very similar to Prince Harry, was that in the Navy and, the Falklands and everything that he did for that. That shouldn't be forgotten. That was obviously a very, historical moment. And you can imagine the dangers that he put himself into, whatever people think. Similar with Prince Harry, if you think about it, Harry had this thing with the army that he's never really been able to let go because it's now a more normal world for him. But the army, I think, was where he really flourished and enjoyed the period. Whether he was in the bunker playing games or not, it was a different world. Suddenly he'd seen a different world. Now, of course, the problems are this, and these are the things that are engulfing the monarchy. As we now know, they don't have use of their titles, and the bigger issue is, it's all a bit sort of tip boxy, isn't it? More needs to be done. And what's interesting, according to a very well-placed source over in Montecito, is you see both Harry and Meghan in some respects see this as a bit of a, easier term for them, simply because people are now not going to be looking at them as the bad apples, the one that escaped, the one that wanted a different life. Now it's all about Andrew and Sarah Ferguson and exactly what did they do behind the scenes with, of course, all of the associations that they had, good and bad. What I find odd, and this is just me being honest with you here, is there are far more people as well on that list that are not notified, and nobody's been called to attention the way that, of course, the former royal Prince Andrew has been. And I'm not defending, I'm just saying, look at the list and you think, well, how come they've not been given a thorough going over, and why are they not being called to arms? Why are they still in positions of power? The sort of thing I mean? Truthfully, there should be something in the middle ground there. But according to a source, you see, Meghan now has an ultimate, really, for her moving forward with what's happening within the royal family. You see, her story, her narrative have always been that, she needed to escape, she wasn't welcome there, people treated her badly, the car keys were taken away, she was everywhere and nowhere, didn't go out for 4 months, and yet we all know that's not true. She had the baby shower, she flew around the world, all of that sort of stuff. But this is Meghan's world and this is the narrative. Now, as you know, a while back at the start of this year, Vanity Fair published the story that Meghan was shopping around a post-divorce book, and that's never been refuted by the camp at all. Well, they say baseless rumours and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, what you're basically saying is that, the story was there. Nobody ever came out and said that. Meghan Markle knows now that she has a book, and it's certainly a bombshell book, because she can now give her thoughts on a very short time within the royal family. But more importantly, she can also give her thoughts now on what it was like to know Prince Andrew. There are many people, of course, in that story that would work very well. And the narrative now that they will want to go down, and this is her team, and again, I have to say allegedly, but this is from an excellent source, is the narrative is this is the reason why Meghan wanted out of the monarchy. Simply because, she felt this was a toxic environment. She'd heard these rumours. And as I said at the start of the video, remember, she very much pointed out to Harry, who is this person? Now, as I've often told you here on the show, and this is the beauty of our community, is the fact that, she was big friends with Princess Eugenie, right? I mean, long before Harry, she made sure she got connected in the relevant people. So by being connected in the relevant people, she would have known, and Eugenie herself has told people that she showed her endless pictures of her family, what he did, what they'd done, her sister, her mother, everything. And then later on, if you remember, there was contradiction once again between the Duchess of York, as she then was Sarah Ferguson, and Meghan Markle herself. Because according to Meghan Markle, on that very fateful, very first meeting with Her Majesty the Queen, she said that it was the Duchess of York who very quickly showed her how to curtsy. On comment, and in print and online, Sarah Ferguson has absolutely said, no, she doesn't really know Meghan that much. She doesn't have any recollection of that particular situation happening, but Meghan stuck by it. Guess what? That story now is going to be evaporated, right? That's not going to be mentioned anymore because it's not the right thing to do. Now, where this gets really interesting, as I said, is you've got Harry and you've got Meghan and their friendship. And Harry had a very good, close friendship with Princess Eugenie and Princess Beatrice, being around about the same age bracket, and they got on very well. Harry also got on very well with Prince Andrew. And the problem that you have, and this is a difficult situation now for him, because obviously, it's difficult for anybody in the royal family to come out, but Harry now is a celebrity, right? So that's what he is. And at some point, whatever he does, whether he does a sit-down chat about, his plans or his book or his Invictus or something, some journalist is going to ask him his thoughts. Now, if you remember, when he was asked certain thoughts in the recent BBC interview and with the Oprah Winfrey thing, he said, I'm not willing to share that, I'm not willing to do that. But nonetheless, this is going to keep coming back. The bigger issue now, of course, as we all know, when Meghan Markle sits down with any interviewer, all the questions are given in advance. So she would be shrewd enough to stay away from that for further lucrative attachment. You see how this works. But behind the scenes, the problem that you've now got is really that the two princesses are looking towards Harry for at least some sort of, support, even on a personal level. He should have come out and said, I hope they're both okay. It's a terrible time they're going through. They have our full support. And this is where the transparency of Meghan really shines through. She doesn't support anybody, because the minute that you're tarnished, the minute that it doesn't really suit her narrative, she moves away. Now, I'm not saying she's unique in this. A lot of celebrities do this. They back off the minute there's a problem because they don't want to be part of the problem. You understand? Moving forward now, as I said, the bottom line is the narrative coming out of the Sussex camp will be that the reason, and Prince Andrew has literally given Meghan Markle the golden ticket of, well, what she could now say. Because while she can't blame him, but she can say, while I was living there were certain forces, etc. And this will be the narrative that they're going to go down, the reason why they wanted to move away. They could see the inner squabbles of the family. Now, as you know, His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, Prince William, trying his very best to get things back on track and to move things in the right direction. But this is not going away. With the release of course, the deceased Virginia Giuffre's book, now we only have her words after life, right? So consequently, unless Prince Andrew comes out and does something like that, well, and counteracts that, well, who's now going to believe him when apparently he's been less than truthful about when he cut off the relationship? Whatever he does, it's going to hit back and a mess. The second thing is that also, according to an excellent source, Sarah Ferguson is eyeing up the opportunity to tell her side of the story once again, to clear her name and move forward, because obviously they need to earn money and lots of lucrative things in Sarah Ferguson's life. Now not the Duchess of York, but simply Sarah Ferguson's life, including forthcoming books, novels, TV appearances. All of that have been cancelled, hence the reason she sold her house recently. So now, as I said, you've got twofold problems here. But for Meghan and Harry, well, Andrew has literally given them the golden moment of, well, execution. They can say they did the right thing to move away from the British monarchy. And who, after a story like this and a scandal like this that's still continually brewing, well, who can really, in many respects, particularly if you don't understand the workings of the monarchy, blame them? It is a developing story. When I know more, you'll know more. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.